First day of June 2016 on this Wednesday edition. We kick it off with a report from John Bound.
Social justice warriors. Forget all of the death threats you have spewed out towards Donald Trump, deeming him a bigot simply because you can't swallow the truth. Reality is on the verge of entering the comfort zone you so adamantly defend. The tsunami of immigration strategized by Bilderberg elites to divide and conquer the U.S. and Europe is only growing stronger and more dangerous as the days roll by. And now, as London's newly elected pro-caliphate mayor strengthens the foothold of Sharia law, it appears jolly old England may be the first country to completely fall if nothing is done. Breitbart UK reports. Up to 500,000 migrants and their families who have fled from the Middle East, North Africa, and elsewhere could head to the UK after 2020 under European Union free movement rules. Between 240,000 and 480,000 may travel to UK, and while countries such as Greece, Italy, and Germany have been hardest hit by the migrant crisis so far, a secondary wave will likely move on to Britain once they have the right. Meanwhile, as Obama is challenged by 26 states on the constitutionality of the 2014 DAPA program, the dam has completely burst as a surge of unchecked illegal immigrants entering the United States swells into record numbers. WCQS reports immigrants fleeing gang violence in Central America are again surging across the U.S.-Mexico border, approaching the numbers that created an immigration crisis in the summer of 2014. While the flow of immigrants slowed for much of last year, nothing the U.S. government does seems to deter the current wave of travelers. Yet the numbers are daunting. From last October to March, the U.S. Border Patrol averaged 330 apprehensions of Central Americans a day, according to an analysis by the Pew Research Center, an increase of 100% over the same time period a year earlier. And it's not just the surging numbers of criminals given the revolving door into the United States, freely killing and, yes, raping U.S. citizens, or the quiet strengthening of Sharia communities in the United States that is fully underway.
We have had Somalians here once they got on that special alien list. They won't tell us that anymore, but there have been Somalians, India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Chinese, you name it, we've had it here.
But as one of them was climbing over the fence, he dropped a package. And that package was an Urdu dictionary. Urdu is a language spoken in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And in that translation book, Urdu and English, there were a lot of phrases circled and outlined. Do you speak Spanish? Do you speak English? So it's easier for them to slip through this private property.
Disease lives inside this Trojan horse.
The rates of tuberculosis infections are rising for the first time in nearly 20 years, and the evidence points to people coming from overseas to the United States. Our own investigation has found that everyone, U.S.-born or foreign-born, who lives in a refugee resettlement area is at risk for contracting tuberculosis.
An outbreak of measles, a highly contagious measles that began with an inmate at the Eloy Detention Center has now grown to 11 confirmed cases.
And now state, county health officials are working to try to stop it from spreading further.
Breitbart reports a flesh-eating tropical disease is ravaging the war-torn Middle East after Islamic State destruction created the ideal breeding conditions. The parasitic disease called cutaneous leishmaniasis, also known as the Aleppo evil, is caused by bites from tiny infected sandflies which thrive in the squalid conditions left in the wake of the Islamic State terror and conflict. The number of cases has shot up from just 6 in 2012 to thousands just a year later. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention reported that the disease has recently begun to flourish in Syria's neighboring countries. The time has come to shut down George Soros' social justice warriors wreaking havoc on the narrative. Freedom of speech is needed now more than ever. Ignorance can't be the darkened midnight path we lead our families and fellow Americans down. This trail winds its way towards certain doom, emboldened by our own inaction. John Bound for Infowars.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're live. The big broadcast kicks off now. Well, it's already June 1st, 2016 on this Wednesday worldwide live broadcast. I'm your host, Alex Jones. We're going to be here, obviously, for the next 4 hours. David Knight will host the 4th hour. Joe Biggs is following a Breitbart politically incorrect tour in California where the social justice warriors try to block free speech everywhere it's taking place. A truly monstrous group of people. We have a bunch of the videos up on Infowars.com. We're writing articles about them right now. Just what happened last night with the kickoff of the tour. But we can't obviously play them here because the social justice warriors do not have any forms of English other than just screaming, frothing, and cussing. Headline, social justice warrior whiners attempt to block free speech at UCLA. That's too kind of a headline. Anti-free speech goons attempt to destroy free speech at a university again. I mean, that's what they're doing. And they revel in it. And this is not some aberration. Everywhere you go, you are faced with the Age Skrillex and the Trigglypuffs of the world, that's their meme names, who just absolutely want to shut freedom in this country down. They do not want to let you speak. They do not want to let you raise your children the way you see fit. They want to run your life, period. That's all it comes down to. And we have to exercise our free speech or lose it, because here's the big news. All over Europe and now in the United States, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google, Apple platforms are censoring populist speech, nationalist speech, conservative speech, libertarian speech, Christian speech, leftist speech that's concerned about Islam, you name it. Now, by the way, if you're in Mongolia or you're in Tibet or you're in India especially, you're afraid of Muslims. Because there are bombings every day for the last 60, 70 years, and shootings and beatings and stabbings every day against Buddhists and against Hindus and against other groups that traditionally get along with each other. But the Muslims come in and try to take over. That's why the Dalai Lama has come out against radical Islam and warned Germany to stop opening its borders and stop killing itself. Because to people in China and Tibet and Japan and all over, they are, what on earth are you doing? They were all attacked by booby pirates. That's where the term booby comes from, is an Islamic pirate. That all over the South Pacific. I mean, you know, Islam took over most of the South Pacific and all around Australia. And I mean, you know that, right? The only place they didn't get was the Philippines. I mean, everybody knows that, right? No, people don't know that. It wasn't just Europe that got overrun. It wasn't just Russia that got overrun. It wasn't just Poland. It wasn't just Romania and Hungary and Serbia and Greece and Rome. Rome had to build big walls around Vatican City because of the Islamic invasions. And then the people showing up are screaming, we're here to invade, we're here to take over, we're here to get your women. White people are bad. Everyone's like, oh, I'm white, I'm evil, you slit my throat. It's wild. And again, we're not bringing in the Muslims from areas of Iraq or areas of Jordan or even areas from Egypt where they really do like the West on average and really do just want to have civilization. We're bringing in the Saudi brainwashed Wahhabist. In fact, there's new numbers out today where they claim out of the couple thousand refugees they brought to the United States so far this year in the last 6 months, because we're kicking off the 6th month, yeah, so almost 6 months here, that there's almost zero Christians. 1,037 Syrian refugees admitted in May, 2 Christians. That's 0.19. Syria is 20% plus Christian. It was almost 30. Hundreds of thousands got killed. Another 10% got out, but they're not allowed to go into Europe. Christians are blocked by Germany, by France, by Sweden. Because you heard the Pope 2 weeks ago, he said Europe should be embarrassed by its traditional Christian roots. But he used a term much worse than it was. He abhors and is repulsed. Well, what was the exact word? It was repulsed or abhorred. We can pull up the LaCroix newspaper. We have the English translation on Infowars.com. And he just talks about how horrible it is and how good it is this is happening because Christian Europe is bad. And that Jesus sent his disciples out like ISIS did. I mean, this is stuff I'd expect to hear at some satanic mass with black altars. It's the kind of stuff they spew out of their mouths, you know, blasphemy. But now it just flows open blasphemy out of the Pope's mouth like a satanic high priest. I mean, where are the, you know, women over the altars? And the Pope kisses the rose of Venus' shame. Let's put him back up on screen. Put him up there. Pope Palpatine compares Christianity to ISIS. Go watch my original report. But if we go back to the actual text in the article you had previously, thank you for pulling up so quick. We don't script this, folks. They're just going and gunning as I talk about it. Pope Francis likens Jesus for ISIS, says Muslims must breed with Europeans. Francis claims ISIS is similar to Jesus, sending his disciples into all nations. And then he went on. In a shocking interview, Pope Francis likens Jesus Christ to ISIS. Today, I don't think there is fear of Islam as such as ISIS and its war of conquest, which is partly drawn from Islam, he told the French paper LaCroix. Quote, it is true that the idea of conquest is inherent in the soul of Islam. However, it is also possible to interpret the objective in Matthew's gospel where Jesus sends his disciples to all nations in terms of the same idea of conquest. Oh, the opposite. The Pope also said he, quote, dreaded hearing about Christian roots of Europe because to him they take on colonialist overtones, close quote. He called on European nations, quote, to integrate Muslim migrants into the continent. Yeah, I bet those German girls are going to love not being able to wear those little, those aren't even so much German outfits as they are, what's the more classical liberal area of Germany that's more libertarian, kind of like the Texas of Germany. I'm having one of those momentary blips on my mental capacity. They call it a brain flatulence, I guess, would be the proper nomenclature. Bavaria. Thank you. Bavaria. There you go. I always love running into German Bavarians. I don't think I've run into any Bavarians that aren't listeners. I'll be on trips. You know, Germans are probably the most prolific travelers out there, maybe after the Japanese. It's a cliche. It's a stereotype because statistically it's true. It's like Americans have the least amount of passports of any free country. It's like Kim Jong-un looks like a psychopath. Anyways, excuse me. It's just facts. But getting back to the news and information here, where was I? Oh, yes. They are opening up the borders at a very rapid clip and allowing TB in at massive levels and spreading everywhere. People are dying from it. It's so glorious because the government wants to protect you and wants to keep you safe. And now even Reuters is forced to report on the latest sexual assaults. Asylum seekers investigated over sex attacks at German festival. Now, it was reportedly 27 women were groped or raped, or both. But now by the time it hits our news, 3 Pakistani men seeking asylum in Germany are being investigated after dozens of women said they were sexually harassed at a music festival over the weekend, prosecutors said. All you got to do is buy them a beer and talk to them, guys. You don't need to try to rape them. I understand you see a free woman out. It's like fair game because they're slaves in a lot of your countries, but I understand I'm an evil person and I don't like that, and so the feminists don't like me because I don't want to have women chained up and sexually mutilated. But if women want to be in slave galleys, they know where to go. The accusations follow mass sexual attacks on women at New Year's Eve in Cologne, which the police were ordered to cover up. But the police later leaked it, so we know the truth, which fueled a backlash against Chancellor Angela Merkel's open-door migrant policy. Of course, the answer is when they vote out the government, they just have an election fraud, so they don't get voted out. After the festival in the western city of Darmstadt, do I pronounce that right? Which attracted 300 to 400,000 people over 4 days, 26 women made complaints of harassment, and there are officially 18 injured parties, a spokeswoman for prosecutors said on Wednesday. But they've got the rug up, sweeping it under immediately. The women complained that they were surrounded by a small group of men who then touched them inappropriately, a police spokesman said. Of course, we know about what happened in Cologne and everywhere else. They're doing everything they can to cover this up. Because if you got an unattended woman, even if she's wearing, long dress and stuff, she is fair game. And if you can rape her,